Hey guys, it is Carl Brown from GuitarLessons365.com. The great one from Ozzy Osbourne and the great Randy Rhoads today with Flying High Again. We're going to do the whole thing through all the riffs. We're going to take a look at the solo as well, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We are also tuned down a half step, so make sure you do that before you start following along. That's just every single note, every single string, tuned down a half step. I'll put the notes in the description just so you'll have them there for yourself. So please follow the channel if you haven't already, and ring the little notification bell so you know when I release a new video. Thank you to anybody who has already become a member of this channel, supported it with a small monthly donation. It really helps out. It helps me keep cranking out these lessons. And please check out my Guitar Academy. It contains all my guitar courses, all systematic guitar courses covering technique, ear training, guitar tone, improvisation, theory, just everything. So please check that out at GuitarLessons365.com. All right, so let's just get cranking on this track now. So we have this intro. It's a pretty basic riff for Randy Rhoads at least. Of course, a little bit later in the song, it's going to be nothing but basic. But we have this. All right, so that's just the intro. So it's kind of very, the second half of that is pretty much just the verse of the song. Now, throughout this, Randy Rhoads on the live album, even on the studio recording, which is what I'm covering here, tons of fills. He's got a lot of little variations that he'll do here or there. So what I'm going to kind of do is I'll kind of show you two of the most important ones. But for the most part, when you're doing these fills and he comes up and he does some crazy bend or a quick little lick, I'm not going to cover every single one, a little tiny fill that he does throughout the whole song, because it'd be kind of hard to really track that. So I'm going to teach you the actual riffs, a couple of the most important fills, and then the full solo. So let's start here with this A chord, A power chord, and then it goes to this Keith Richards move to this D chord. So it's just, you have that A bar, and then you just put the 4th fret down on the D string, and then the 3rd fret down on the B string. So while you do that, you still keep that bar there, that A. Then just lift up everything, hit the open strings, kind of open D, G, and B strings real quick. And then back to the A chord twice. Little pause there, and then we go back to the A again, and then back to the that little D chord, and then we jump to a G major chord. It's not really a G major, it's kind of a G power chord because we're muting the A string. So we have this. So from there we have this. Just 2, 3 on the A string, and then to the D power chord, which is the open D, the 2nd fret on the G, 3rd fret on the B. Hit that a couple times. So we have this. All right, and then we have the first ending, which is just grabbing this kind of double stops here off the 5th fret of the D and the G to the open strings of those same strings. And then we go to kind of the second half of the intro, which is pretty much like the verse. Fill. So what that is, it's pretty similar. It starts with that A again, and then kind of the open A string and the 4th fret on the D. And then you grab the 3rd fret on the low E string, and then back to the A power chord, and then back to that 3rd fret on the low E. On the 3rd fret on the low E, and he kind of always does like a kind of a slow bend on it. So So now I want to talk about a little variation that he'll do sometimes here. It's just the first time we're seeing this verse riff. He'll grab the octave of that G note at the 5th fret on the D string. Just the last time you hear it. So instead of this, you have this. So you can kind of just freely use that whenever you want to. So that first beginning of the verse riff here, which is really just the second half of the intro, he does the low G bend there, and then the same chords, and then we have this little fill. So what that is you're going to pick the first fret of the the B string. Got to pick that, pull off to the open D, then pick it again the first fret and pull back off to the D. So it's a 0 1 0 1. I'm sorry, 1 0 1 0. Then take it to the 2nd fret of the G string, pick that, pull off to the open G, 2nd fret of the D, pull off to the open D, and then the 3rd fret on the A string with a slight bend on it. Now sometimes I'll put some harmonics, especially in the live recording. Pinch harmonics on there, so those are always fun to add. Anyway, so that's the entire intro, and then we get to the verse, which is pretty much like the second half of the intro there. So this. All right, so like I said, you can use that little variation that we did. Kind of, if you wanted to, it's up to you. So we basically have that. Same chords. And then this first ending, those same double stops at the 5th fret of the D and the G, to the open strings, and then repeat the riff. And then we have this second ending for the verse. So this is at the very ending of the verse when they're going to the pre-chorus, and it does this. So that's in place of this. It's right here. It's just the 8th fret double stops on the D and the G. Pick those and slide them down to 7. So you're gonna do that twice. And then the 5th fret across the D and the G. All right, and that takes us to the pre-chorus, which looks like this. All right, so we're gonna basically just go and start with this A power chord again. And then that little D chord again to the open strings again. So it's kind of like we did earlier. So when you get back to that A chord, that A power chord, and you hit that once, and then we start this little. So that's kind of a open low E, and then a slight bend at the 3rd fret. And then the open A. Kind of pretty muted too. Then you're gonna grab this A major chord. It's actually an A power chord, kind of with a big stretch on it. So it's the 2nd fret on the D and the G, and then the 5th fret of the B and the high E. Try this. So you do that a couple times. And then after you do that twice, we go slightly different. It's 0 2 on the low E, then the open A. So far we have this. And then we jump up here. So that's just the open A string, right? Open A string underneath all these chords here, these first three. So we have open A, and then you're going to bar across the 7th fret and add the 8th fret there on the B. So just strum the 4 middle strings. Then lift up that 8th fret, so it's just a full bar here. All the bar, open A still, but then a bar across the D, G, and B across the 7th fret. And then move that down to the 5th fret. So this. Then the open D and the open G strings by itself. So we have this all together. And then start over. Then we get to the pre-chorus, which uses basically just kind of usually 3rd intervals, mostly on the 2 middle strings. So it's on the D and the G strings. So we have, it sounds like this. All right, so we basically have just the 4th fret on the D, and then the 2nd fret on the G. Then pick those again, move up 2 frets. So it's 4 on the G, now 6 on the D. And then up to 7 on the D, 6 on the G. So it is. Then back down to this one right here, which is 6 on the D, 4 on the G. And then back down to the one we started with. So this. Then back up to this one, the 6 on the D, 4 on the G. And here we go just to a 5th interval, which is open D, and then the 2nd fret there on the G. So there's this. As he holds that, and let the high E open a couple times, and then start over. All right, so then after that, that pre-chorus, it doesn't go to the chorus. He says flying high again, but it takes you back to this little turnaround, which is once again pretty much just the verse of the song with a different fill in it. So it sounds like this. All right, so that is just the kind of the verse we did before. And now we had this little fill, which is just a trills to the open G string from the 5th fret, then down to 4, and then 2. Then back. So we have this. And right here, just I kind of pointed out that little variation. He kind of does that the second half of this little turnaround. And then the same ending. All right, so then we just go back through the verse the same way, pretty much. And then the pre-chorus section. Through the pre-chorus section, and then we finally, after the second pre-chorus, get to the full chorus, which looks like this. All right, so, and that leads to the solo. So this is a pretty straightforward riff, this one. Just A power chord there. Slight bend on the 3rd fret of the low E. Then the open A again. Then an A power chord again, so we have this. Then up to the 5th fret there on the D and the G together. Open A again. And then the 7th fret there on the D and the G. So we have this. Slower. So it's kind of gonna really grab those 5s right there. I'd let that ring a little bit. Then the open D and G together. And there's a quick little slide from the, you're gonna have the 5th fret on the D and the G together. Slide those down to 4. So okay, then we're going to the solo. We're going to stop, hold on that 7 there. Now, real quick, before I cover the solo, that'll be last. We have the rhythm guitar part for the solo. Everybody hates it when I skip the rhythm guitar part, but I'm so excited to get to the solo. But I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to cover the rhythm. All right, so the rhythm is that pre-chorus, those little thirds. Done twice. And then after that, when it gets to the tapping part, the really cool tapping part of the solo, it jumps into these power chords. All right, so that's the open A power chord to the F power chord of the 1st fret of the low E string, to the D power chord we did earlier, to a B flat power chord now. So that's going to be off the 1st fret of the A string. So we have this so far. Then we go to the open E power chord, the C power chord off the 3rd fret of the A string, back to that A power chord, and back to the F power chord. And then it goes back to the chorus out of the solo. So those whole power chords there in the tapping section look like this. All right, so let's get to the fun stuff. I'm going to play through Randy Rhoads' solo real quick, and then I'll show you how to play it phrase by phrase. All right, so that is a great solo, as all of his solos were. So let's start here. We're going to start out with kind of a simple blues lick. So that's just kind of a 14th fret on the high E string. I'll pull off 17 to 14 on the B. Into a bend at the 16th fret on the G. So kind of a standard blues lick you've seen before, I'm sure. Done like 4 times. And then we have this little descending lick. So that is going to be 17, 16, 14 on the high E. then 17, 15, 14 on the B. And then back to 17, 16, 14 on the G. So this. Then just 16 and 14 on the D string. And then he plays the 16th fret on the A string. And then it's either going to be go back to the 15th on the A then, and some rapid kind of half-step bends, or you can just do a trill, whatever you like. I've been kind of just doing some kind of vibrato on it, so it's kind of. All right, next pattern. All right, so that's going to start with a pull off from 12 to 11 on the D. Then pick 12 again, hammer on 14. Over to 11 on the G string, back to the 14th fret there on the D. Then slide 11 to 12 on the G, and then pull off 14 to 12 on the G. So then slide 14 to 16 on the G string, and then hammer 14 to 17 on the B. Over to 14 on the high E, hammer 15, pull back up to 14, and ended at the 17 on the B. So all together. All right, now the next phrase after that looks like this. All right, so that's going to be really heavily palmed. It's kind of hard to pick up on the recording. But we have 14, 12 on the low E, then 12 on the A, back to 14 on the low E. So we have that for the first four notes. Then what you're going to do is jump up to the, play 16, 14 on the A string, and then 14 on the D, and then back to 16 on the A. So basically the same lick, just played a different spot. So it's like. All right, so then we go 16, 14 on the D, and then you're going to play 14, 16 on the G. So you kind of reverse it. So we have this all together. Yeah. Play 14, 16 there on the G, and then you can do a little trill between 14 and 15 on the B, back to that 16 on the G. So we have this. Then we have a really fun lick that looks like this. Yay. All right, so that is just going to, you're going to start with just a little hammer between 10 and 14 on the B string. And then the lick kind of really starts here. So it's kind of hammer, pick 10 on the high E, hammer on 14, pull back off to 10, and then go over to the B string, the same frets, 14 and 10, pick 14, pull off to 10, hammer back to 14. So this. So you start it here, kind of start it, and then the actual lick itself. And then we do the same lick, except the top note on each string, instead of being 14, is going to be 15. So we have this. And then just go back and forth between the top note being 14 and 15, just repeating like 3 times. You don't really all you have to really do is pick the note that's on that first note on the high E string. and just kind of do a hammer on from nowhere for that note on the beat. So you might want to just start it doing without changing the top note so it's not confusing. And then start. So that's all it is. So just between 14 and 15, like 3 times. Then slide up to 17 and do a trill between 19 and 17. And then we have the tapping section, which looks like this. It's a pretty simple tapping pattern. Now, I don't know really how Randy would have tapped it if he tapped with his middle finger. I generally like to tap with my index finger because it just allows me to spread my hand out and kind of mute the other strings better. But if you like doing the tap, just holding your pick like normal. And doesn't really matter. I kind of steal this trick from Nuno Bencourt. Like when I was a teenager, he had his thing in the guitar magazine that he likes to switch to always, really tap with his index finger, and he kind of takes his pick and he just puts it between, holds it with his middle finger between those the kind of the tip joint and the middle joint. So I kind of nicked that idea, and now it's just like I don't even think about it when I'm. I mean, when I'm going back between picking and tapping, I don't even think about putting my pick there. So that's a good, so once you get used to it, it's like a kind of an automatic thing. So you can always use your index finger to tap and then really spread your hand out and kind of mute everything. So anyway, what's the tapping? So what we're doing here is we're going to start here with, it's the same pattern all the way across. So we have 9 on the high E, 12, and then going to be tapping 17. The pattern itself is you do the tap. So you tap, pull off to 12, then tap again, pull off to 12, and then you continue in the left hand, pull off to 9, hammer back to 12. So we have this. You can also see I like to kind of pull upwards when I tap. I don't do a lot of, I like to keep my hand in position and just use the index finger to do it. So anyway, so that tapping at slow speed sounds kind of, doesn't sound that impressive. That sounds really cool when you get up to speed. So it's kind of that little, it feels like there's a quick little double tap. And from there, it's easy. So as soon as you get the pattern down, you can do it. All you're going to do now is move it to, move it over a string, so up to the B string, and then up 1 fret. So instead of 19 and 12 here, you're going to go on the B string 10 and 13. And then instead of the 17th fret on the B, you're going to go to 18. And then do the same tapping. So you're always doing the tapping pattern 4 times on each string. And then continue that process. You're moving over now to the G string and moving everything up a fret again. So now it's 19 with the tap, 14 and 11 on the left hand. And then up to 20 on the tap and 15 and 12 in the left hand. That's on the D string. So we have this. And then it's kind of like a slide down to prepare for this next one. And then it takes the exact same lick, but now it's the tapping is starting at the 12th fret on the high E, and then you're playing 14 and 7 on, 4 and 7 in the left hand. Same pattern and then the same process, moving over a string and then upper fret each time. So make sure you move each hand up 1 fret as well as 1 string up and each time. So just like we did here, but just now starting here. It's a head-turning lick for sure. But it's probably the easiest part of the solo, which is crazy. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm trying to get a lot more Randy Rhoads onto the channel, man. I think I neglected him, so now I'm starting to crank out a lot of Randy Rhoads. So we're going to have a lot of fun going through his sadly limited repertoire. But I hope to see you on the next one.